Hello, dear students. Greetings of the day. I, Mohammad Zishan, welcome you to the online classes of Blooming Birds Code School Sambhal. Today, we are going to have second lecture of third chapter of history, which is the first phase of Indian national movement. So, when we study about the first phase of Indian national movement, so we know that this phase is all about the moderates or early nationalist, early nationalists, moderates or early nationalists. Now what we will study in this chapter, what we should know about them. The first thing we should know about them is their belief. What were their beliefs? This we have already studied. We have studied about the moderate nationalists, who they were, and various prominent members. Okay, and then after that, what we should know is that their demands. What were their demands? Early nationalists. What were their demands? Means were they demanding complete independence of India, or they were just demanding some constitutional reforms, some administrative and economic reforms? Then third thing we should know about the methods. Methods means what was the way to carry out their demands or to put forward their demands in front of Britishers. Were they doing some aggressive protest, or they were just doing petitions and prayers? And then after methods, what we should study? We should also study about their criticism. Some section of society must have criticized them. Criticism, their criticism, right? Criticize them. They, some must have criticized their functioning. Some must have criticized their uh, way of presenting their demands, their methods. Okay, so belief, demands, methods, criticism, and what else we should study? We should also study what was the behavior of British officials towards them. So uh, you can write behavior of officials, behavior of British officials towards them. And then we should study about some of the prominent early nationalist or moderates, prominent early nationalist, prominent early nationalists like Dada Bhai Nauroji, W.C. Banerjee, Gopal Krishna Gokhale, right? So in this beliefs we have already studied. Now we will study the demands. Their demands were nothing, just to bring out reforms. What? Reforms. They wanted to reform. Okay, which type of reforms? First is constitutional reform. Constitutional reform. Second, administrative reform. Administrative reforms. Third, economical reforms. Economical reforms, and they also demanded some civil liberties or reforms in civil liberties, right? So these many reforms they were asking for. Okay, civil liberties or civil rights, you can say. Now, the demand of early nationalists were not to drive Britishers away. They were not asking Angrezo Bharat Chodo, right? What they were saying कि just give us some rights, okay? And for that, they wanted to bring reforms in the constitution, British Constitution of India, right? So these types of reforms are called constitutional reforms. All such reforms which are responsible for the legislation for making laws in India, okay? The laws were being made in India by Britishers, okay, and for that there were legislating bodies, okay, and those legislating bodies used to make laws for India. So the laws were not in favor of Indians; they were anti-Indians, right, exploiting Indians. So they wanted to bring reforms in that. They wanted to make it pro-Indians, right, in favor of Indians and the welfare of Indians, right? So for that, they put forward certain demands, okay, to reform, and those demands are called constitutional reforms demands, okay. So their demands were to bring constitutional reforms. Reform means to bring some good change, positive change, right? And administrative reforms and economical reforms or economic reforms and civil rights. Okay. So one by one we will study. So first is constitutional reform. Now, in this constitutional reform, uh, the India was being ruled after what, after 1857 revolt of 1857. The East India Company's rule was transferred to the British Crown. Earlier in India, East India Company was ruling, but after the revolt of 1857, the British Crown took the rule from East India Company. East India Company was a company of merchants, those who were Britishers, right? So now that from them the rule was taken by the British Crown. Now British Crown thought that in order to govern country we need to have the cooperation of Indians. Okay, so for that they made so many reforms, right? And in that series only the Council of India Act 1861, or you can say Indian Council Act of 1861 was passed. Indian Council Act 1861. This is also called Council of India Act. Okay, in your book it is written abolition of India Council. So it is that council only. Okay, they are giving large reference to that. The author want to give large reference. That's why it has written India Council. So Indian Council Act 1861. This act asked the legislators. Okay, it said that uh, the viceroy should nominate some members to its council, some Indian members to its council. Okay. So now they are not saying that there will be a procedure by which voting will take place and Indians will elect their representative, and then it will be sent to the imperial legislative council or provincial legislative council. No, right? It was not like that. It was only that okay, governor will nominate. And now how governor will nominate? Huh? How governor will nominate? So governor used to appoint anyone, okay, the person whom he felt right, okay, as the member of imperial legislative council, right? So in a year, in a span of 30 years from 1860 to 1890, you can say 1861 to 1891, only 45 members were appointed here, were nominated by the governor, by the, sorry, viceroy. Okay. Then afterwards, what happened in 1892? The next Indian Council Act of Indian Council Act of 1892 was passed. Okay, it was passed by the demands of these early nationalists only. Okay, early nationalists only. Now, how was the constitutional machinery at the time? Let us understand that. Okay, nowadays in India, what we are having, what is the constitutional machinery nowadays? We are having three wings of the government, that is executive, judiciary, legislature. And in that, suppose if we are talking about legislature, in legislature we are having union government as well as state government, okay, right? So uh, just for making it more clear to you, governments are there are two types of governments, you can say, one as a whole and others state, okay. So you can say state government and union government, union or central government, okay. So at that time, how it was being carried means there was British rule. In British rule, there were so many in starting they established their rule in Bengal, right? And the uh, one you can say representative of British crown was the head of that entire state Bengal, and he was called the governor, right? Then later on he became governor general also, and then afterwards he was called viceroy, okay. After it was called viceroy. So when we say that the when the East India Company established their rule in Bengal, when the rule was not of crown, okay. So at that time, their representative, the head who was appointed by them, okay, was called governor, like Robert Clive, okay, Robert Clive. Now later on, after the revolt of 1857, in 1858, what happened? Government of India Act of 1858 changed this designation from Governor General to Viceroy. Okay, Governor General to Viceroy, right? And before that, it changed. It started from Bengal, 1757, Battle of Plassey. Robert Clive, Governor of Bengal, Governor of Bengal, right? Then after that, uh, some other states, okay, like Madras, Bombay, Madras, and Bengal, right? The combined governor of all these provinces, now he became Governor General or Governor in General, Governor General, right? Means he is the governor of all these three provinces. Then afterwards, what happened? They kept on winning more and more and more, uh, territories of India, right? Then after that, revolt of 1857 took place, and after revolt of 1857 took place. After revolt of 1857, the rule was transferred from East India Company to the Crown. To whom? Crown. And the representative of the Crown was called Viceroy. Viceroy. Okay, this Viceroy was the representative of British Crown. Representative of British Crown. Representative of British, I have written in short, okay, just understand that. Representative of British Crown, Viceroy. Clear? So this Viceroy was there, right? Now you must have understood this, okay? Why I was telling you all these things? In order to make you understand what are these legislative councils and all these things, okay? So after that, what happened? Yes, I was here. I was telling you like this. Okay. So here in Britain, likewise, British also were having what? One their government which was responsible for the governance of entire country, right? Which was also called imperial or central government. Okay, for the country, right? It was called imperial or central, and here others were states and these were called provincial. So states were called provinces. So there were two types of government, okay, provincial government as well as imperial or central government. Like we are having state government and union government, likewise they were having this way. Then after that, the head of the entire government, like in India we are having PM, prime minister is there, he is the executive head, right? And uh, president is the constitutional head, okay. But here the head was, all these powers were in the hands of viceroy. He was viceroy. And likewise here the head is chief minister, CM, or governor. Governor is the constitutional head, whereas chief minister is the you can say democratic head, you can say, right? The person who is appointed as the minister, chief minister, by the votes of people, okay. Now here at state, who was the ruler? Governor. Governor only, okay, clear. Now like here we are having, under the PM we are having council of ministers. Council of ministers is there. Likewise there was legislative council as well as executive council, okay. Here this is council of minister is the executive organ, not legislative organ. The legislative organ is our Lok Sabha, and that is parliament, okay, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. But here there were councils, legislative councils as well as executive councils, which were dominated by Britishers only, okay. So it was called Imperial Legislative Council. What? Imperial Legislative Council, I am writing here. First one was imperial or central, you can say, legislative imperial legislative council, and it was provincial legislative council. Provincial legislative council. These councils were of Britishers only, okay. There were two types of members later on. One were officials and another were non-officials, okay. Officials were the Britishers and the Indian representatives were called non-officials, clear. So they were having their executive council also, executive council also, executive council. They were also having their executive council. So this executive council was having the power of ministers, like we are having council of minister, right? We can compare it with cabinet. Executive council, right? I hope it is clear to you. Now what we were studying that Indian Council Act of 1861. Then what were the demands of British, what were the demands of early nationalists? The demands of early nationalists was to have some constitutional reforms. In this, they first demand was to abolish the India Council, as the first point of our book is here. Why? Sorry. They wanted abolition. They wanted its abolition because it was just a hoax. It was not uh, it was created to disguise or to make Indian people feel like whichever legislation is going on in India, that is according to the consent of the Indian people, as they are having their representative, okay. One Raja or Maharaja was like Maharaja of Patiala and Maharaja of Banaras was nominated as the member of the India, member of the Imperial Legislative Council in 1862 by Lord Canning. Okay, after this act was passed, Indian Council Act 1861. So Maharaja of Patiala and Maharaja of Banaras and one more person was nominated by Lord Canning as the member to the Imperial Legislative Council. But since 1861 to 1891, for this 30 years, there were only 45 members nominated. So their numbers were very small. And these were in very small number. They were not having any say in that. Okay, if they are in the council, then they should have their vote. They should have such power that they can force this council to make laws for the welfare of India and Indian citizens. Okay, but as their population was very much scanty, one or two or three, okay, not more than that, one at a time or two at a time. So they were minority in the council and they had no say. Okay, getting or not? So it was just like a hoax. Okay, so that is why the early nationalists wanted its abolition of this Council of India. And second point, they asked that they wanted more representations of Indian in legislative council, imperial legislative council as well as provincial legislative council. So now this Indian Council Act of 1892, it increased number of members in the legislative council, right? And earlier the viceroy used to nominate uh, Indian member to this council just like this only. Okay, but according to this act of 1892, now, so Indian members to the Imperial Legislative Council were nominated by viceroy after consulting provincial legislative council and Bengal Chamber of Commerce, right? Whereas to the provincial legislative council, here provincial legislative council, who was the head of provinces? Governor, right? Entire country, viceroy, right? So here it was the members to the governor's uh, provincial legislative council were nominated by governor after consulting district boards, municipalities, universities, various trade associations and chambers, okay, and zamindar associations. Clear? So like this, the Indian members were nominated to these two most important councils, legislative councils, whose main function was to formulate the laws. Clear? Now there were two legislative, one is imperial and another is provincial, right? So this came after the Indian Council Act of 1892. So it was quite a reformation, you can say. Before that, it was appointed according to the Indian Council Act of 1861, in which nothing was mentioned, but it was written that the viceroy shall nominate an Indian member to the legislative council. Not even the numbers were written, okay. So in a period of 30 years, only 45 members were nominated. So you can say, now in order to have more say in the legislation of India, the early nationalists put forward their demand, and their demand was to bring some reformation in the constitution. So that was called to have constitutional reformation. So this is the way how they had the constitutional reformation. So still our early nationalists were not happy with this also. Okay, why? Because still their number was very less. They were in minorities and they were not having a decisive strength, okay, to take some uh, to finalize something, okay, right? Or in the legislation they were having very little say because of their scanty numbers. They were in minority. They were called non-officials, whereas the members British members to these legislative councils were called officials. Okay, so it was here. Let me read few points from your book. Okay, constitutional reforms. The early nationalists wanted a larger share in the government of their country. They believed that eventually India should move towards democratic self-government. However, they did not ask for immediate achievement of their goal as they feared that the government would suppress their activities. They therefore aimed at winning freedom through a gradual process. They made the following demands. Means they were not asserting their demands because that was the initial starting phase, and they were afraid that if they will put some radicals demand in front of the Britishers, then Britishers will impose restrictions on them, and the government will suppress their activities, not allow them, okay, to do anything. Then the first demand, they said that they made the following demands. First was abolition of India Council. So I have already told you what was all about India Council. Okay, these all things I have told you in order to make you understand. These will not be asked. Okay, what may be asked? Okay, what were the demands of the early nationalist constitutional reforms? Okay, they may ask a question ke, in context to the demands of early nationalist. Okay, write four demands in constitutional reforms. Okay, or write the four constitutional reforms demands. Okay, so first you will write abolition of India. Okay, Council of India, abolition of Council of India or India Council or Indian Council Act of 1861. You can write anyone. Okay, abolition of India Council Act, Indian Council Act of 1861, or you can write abolition of India Council. Okay, and then next is expansion of the legislative council and legislative assemblies both at the center and in the provinces. So this is how I have told you. Okay, they wanted to have expansion. Okay, more representation in these councils. Then increase in the membership of Indians by including some members elected by local bodies like Chamber of Commerce, universities in these councils, and by giving greater power to them, they demanded Indian control over the public purse and raised the slogan "No taxation without representation." Now, these were their demands. I have already told you. Okay, and now their demands were also fulfilled. That these members were being nominated after consulting district boards, municipalities, and universities. Right. In this, they also had a demand to discuss about the budget. Okay, public purse. Public purse means the money which these Britishers were collecting from the Indians in the form of revenue, right? So they wanted to, have these money to be spent on the welfare of Indians rather than on the welfare of army and military and expansion. Okay, so they wanted to have discussion, so they could discuss this budget in, and they could even ask questions. Okay, after this India Council Act of 1892, but still they were having very nominal powers, very nominal say. Okay, then after that they also started saying that we will not pay taxes if you will not give us representation, right? No taxation without representation was a slogan or a cry of Americans during their war of independence against the Britishers. We have already studied this thing in class 8th. Okay, now after that, by the beginning of the 20th century, they made a demand for Swaraj or self-government within the British Empire, like the self-governing colonies of Canada and Australia. Now, till 1905, okay, when the Bengal was divided, and in the very early phase of 20th century, right, these people started demanding Swaraj or self-rule. Swaraj was demanded from Bengal. Okay, they wanted to have the self rule. Okay, like the Australian as well as Canadian people were having. Okay, Australia was also the colony of Britishers, and there the Australians were having their own government, but under the control of Britishers. So likewise, they were also demanding a government of Indian people under the control of Britishers. Okay. Then adequate representation of Indians in the executive council of the viceroy and those of the governors, and they wanted to have adequate representation of Indians in the executive council also, right? Executive council I have written here or not? I told you about that. Okay, executive councils, right? There also. So these were the demands. So what we have studied? We have studied the constitutional demands. We have studied the demands of early nationalists. So their demands were to have constitutional reforms, to have economic reforms, to have administrative reforms, and to have some certain civil rights. Okay, so in constitutional reforms they demanded abolition of Council of India Act. They wanted more representation in the imperial as well as provincial legislative councils, and as well as representation in the executive council of viceroy and governor. And they also wanted to discuss the budgets. Okay, and to put questions in front of the Britishers, right? To ask questions, that is interpellation, right? And these were there. Now next is economic reforms. So let me erase all these things. I hope you would have taken a screenshot of this. Okay. Now what we will study? Now we will study administrative reforms. After making laws, right, those laws are implemented, and administration is all about implementing the laws. Okay, and governing the country according to the established laws, right? So that we will study. Now what were the administrative demands of the early moderates? The early nationalists made the following demands in the administrative sphere. Administrative sphere, I have already told you, the realm of administration. Okay. Demands. What were their demands? First was demand for Indianization of services through simultaneous Indian civil service examination in England and India. What does that mean? In England, ICS exam was conducted, and the Britishers were recruited as Indian civil servants or Indian civil services. Like today, we are having Indian administrative services, IAS, IPS. You prepare for UPSC civil services, and you become top category bureaucrats. Maybe IES, maybe IAS, maybe IPS, maybe IFS. Okay, maybe IRS, maybe IRTS, maybe Indian Postal and Telegraph Services. Okay, right? So many services are there. So likewise, there were Indian civil services. Okay, Indian civil services, ICS. Its exam was conducted in England, and as it was conducted there in England, so Indian peoples, very few Indians used to participate in that. Okay, so wanted they wanted Indianization of Indian civil services, and for that the exam should be conducted in India so that more Indians could participate in exam and could be appointed as ICS. Okay, so it was their demand, Indianization of administrative services. Okay, how it could be Indianized? By conducting exam in India. Complete separation of executive and judiciary. At the time, judiciary and executive were intermingled. Okay, so because of this, they used to arrest and trial Indian people and exploit them. Only one agency used to do all these things. Okay, right? So they, like this, they used to exploit or harass Indians. So they demanded the separation of executive and separation of judiciary. Okay, means the police will be different, and the court, those who will declare its judgment, okay, uh, after the trial, will be the different institution. Okay, so that there may be less chances of exploitation of Indian freedom fighters. And then they made the demand to protect Indians from the arbitrary acts of the police and the bureaucracy. This I have told you. Increase in the powers of the local municipal bodies and reduction of official control over them. They wanted to increase the powers, okay, of the municipalities and the officials, okay, and reduction of official control over them. Uh, so they wanted that the local the Indians in local bodies should have more power and they should have less restrictions, okay, less British official restrictions. Then repeal of Arms Act and License Act. So there was Arms Act in 1878 during Lord Lytton's. We have studied about the repressive policies of Lord Lytton in last chapter. Lord Lytton was very infamous for his two acts. Okay, these two infamous acts were Vernacular Press Act of 1878 and the Arms Act. Okay, so this Arms Act was, you know, was prohibiting Indians to keep guns or to possess and produce guns. Okay, whereas Britishers were allowed to keep guns without any license. Okay, Indians were needed license for that. And second license act was act in order to curb the press. Okay, it was passed in I think in 1850s. Okay, in 1851, right? So it was there to curb the freedom of speech and expression on press. Okay, means the press used to press were supposed to get registered according to this act. They were supposed to take a license, okay, in order to publish their newspapers. Then after that, repeal wider employment of Indians in the higher grades of administrative services, spread of primary education among the masses, improvement of the police system to make it honest, efficient, and popular. So these were the some of the administrative demands of early nationalist leaders. I hope it will be very clear to you. We have discussed two types of demands. One is demands of in the realm of constitutional reforms, and second type of demands, the administrative demands or the demands which were put forward to bring reformation in the administration. So next is defense of civil rights. Okay. After that, we are having economic reforms. So the economic issues raised by the early nationalists included reduction in land revenue and protection of peasants against unjust demands of the zamindar. So land revenue was very high and zamindars used to exploit Indian peasants by imposing very heavy taxes because zamindars were all themselves were forced, okay, to pay high taxes, and these zamindars then in return used to force Indian peasants to pay the double high taxes, okay, so that they could keep some amount in their pocket also, not some handsome amount in their pocket also, and could give it to British administration also, right? British government also. Then reduction in expenditure on the army and the money that saved to be spent on welfare activities such as health and education. This point we have studied. On army, Britishers used to spend a lot of amount of money. So Indians were demanding from Britishers to reduce the expenditure on the army, and the money saved was supposed to be spent on health and education in India. Then an inquiry into growing poverty and famines. So they also demanded that okay, British should inquire why India is becoming poor, right, and why there are a lot of famines. Okay, famines, a condition in which people are not having even food grains to eat, akal. Okay, right. Then after that, availability of cheap credit to peasants through agricultural banks. They also demanded that okay, Britishers should provide cheap loans, okay, to the Indian peasants through banks. Earlier, these loans were given by uh, these sahukars, okay, and these sahukar used to exploit the peasants a lot, okay, clear. Their interest was much higher than the principal, okay, and the peasants were not able to repay that principal, okay, in entire their life. So their condition was very pretty. Okay, then after that, development of banking, irrigation, medical and health facilities to the people, right? So these were all economic reforms: banking, irrigation and health facilities. Okay, then industrial growth through trade production. That means that a heavy tax should be imposed on imported goods, and the government should give loans for the development of iron, coal, paper and sugar industries in India. So they wanted to uh, they demanded for the industrial growth, okay, through trade production. How trade could be protected? They said that okay, you should impose hefty or heavy import duties, okay, on the goods which is being imported from foreign countries, right, so that Indian goods can be sold in India. Okay, Indian goods, if Indian good was sold in India, then Indian people will earn some money, okay, and they will become prosperous. It will be again economic reform. Then after that, total abolition of salt tax and sugar tax. These were the economical reforms. Okay, this is how these were the demands. Okay, to bring economical reforms in India. Demands of Indian early nationalist. Then defense of civil liberties or civil rights. The early nationalists defended civil rights whenever the British government tried to curtail them. In fact, it was because of the political work done by the early nationalists that democratic ideas began to take root among Indians. The early nationalists demanded the following civil rights. First, removal of the restrictions imposed by the British government on the freedom of speech and freedom of press. Okay, so British government imposed restrictions on freedom of speech and freedom of press. So they wanted to remove this. Okay, so this will come under civil rights. Means they wanted free Indians. Okay, who could express themselves. Okay, clear. They wanted freedom of speech and freedom of press. Abolition of Preventive Detention Act and restoration of individual liberties. Okay, so there was Preventive Detention Act at the time. The Britishers used to arrest anyone, okay, before even committing crime, okay, under this Preventive Detention Act, okay, to prevent a crime. Then now how will you come to know whether I am going to do crime or not? Okay, nobody will come to know, right? Means in some cases you can come to know, but in most of the cases you will not come to know, and the chances are there that okay, you will exploit people on the name of this Preventive Detention Act. The government or any person who is in the power, okay, can misuse this Preventive Detention Act. Okay, so this act was there, so they also demanded the removal of this act, okay, abolition of the Preventive Detention Act. Now, and restoration of individual liberties. Now I am very much sad to tell you that okay, this Preventive Detention Act still exists in India. Okay, NSA, National Security Act. This is also a kind of Preventive Detention Act, okay, according to which uh, you can arrest anyone. Okay, arrest anyone. Like the recent example is Dr. Kafil Khan. Dr. Kafil Khan was arrested on the pretext of this Preventive Detention Act, and NSA was imposed on him, right? But later on, the UP High Court asked the government to release Kafil Khan and declared him innocent. Okay, right? So, like this, what may happen? Not like this means if means it can be misused. Okay, so in a country like India where we are having broad-minded people, okay, we should have some alternative to this act. Okay, then after that. Okay, then restoration of right to assemble and to form association, right? This restoration right to assemble and form what? Form association. This I have told you in class 9th. Okay, Article 19 of Indian Constitution gives us what? Some uh, freedoms, okay, right? Article 19 guarantees, okay, some basic freedoms, like first one is freedom of speech and expression, then second, freedom to assemble peacefully without arms, then third, freedom to form associations, then fourth, freedom to move anywhere in India, then fifth, freedom to reside anywhere in India, and the sixth, uh, freedom to profess any profession, okay, freedom to profess any profession, freedom to have any profession, trade and occupation, okay. These six basic freedoms were given, okay, in article 19, right? Article 19, clause A, clause B, clause C, clause D, like this, okay. So I have told you in class ninth, okay, these freedoms are given to us in today's time, okay, when we are independent, okay, our own government has given to us. But when we were the slave of the Britishers, when we were not free, we didn't get our independent, okay, during the British rule, we were not having these freedoms, and our early nationalists demanded to have these freedoms, freedom to form assembly, freedom to assemble and form associations. So this was all about the demands of early nationalists, okay. These demands to bring constitutional reforms, administrative reforms, economical reforms, and civil rights. I hope you will remember all these things. Next we will study, in next video we will study about the methods. Thank you so much.